Hey, what's up, world? It's Patrick Lovell, Truth Bomb riffing the con on Sunday, December 3rd at 1:10 p.m. And I was on the fence about doing a Truth Bomb riff this afternoon because I was pretty satisfied with my last one. And if you're just discovering me for the first time and you happen to go to my catalog at Patrick Lovell Truth Bombs the Con and you check out We Have to Electrify a Movement, I said a lot of what I wanted to say with the enthusiasm that I wanted to say it. So I'm going to kind of hang my hat on that and I'll keep sharing that until we can find a way to hopefully reach the right people and the people that need to electrify more people. But I thought I'd chime in today because of the college football playoff announcements by the committee and what we're going to see in the bowl championship series. And of course, this is the last year we're going to have 4 teams, and next year we're going to expand it to 12 teams, which will be fabulous considering what we've had to endure these past 10 years. But yeah, I really feel bad for you Seminole fans out there. I really do, because again, after listening to a lot of what I've been hearing, yeah, you can't come out of a Power Five power conference and do what it takes to go undefeated and win your championship game and not make it to the Final Four. I mean, I was worried they were going to keep Washington out. I was worried that they were going to go with an all Big Ten, all SEC matchup just because that seemed to match kind of the trend of what they were doing lately. But I have to be honest, I'm happy that Texas got in. I don't think Texas put together the most solid, complete season that I thought they were capable of. I thought they're the best team in the country until they lost to Oklahoma. And of course, it was the last drive, an exciting game. But Texas didn't play superb until like the last 2 games. And then yesterday, they played superb. They played as well as one could expect from, I think, the best top to bottom players in the country are on that Texas Longhorn roster, and they all came together yesterday. So I personally was happy to see Texas. I'm bummed for the Florida State guys and so many others. But I wanted to chime in because last night, I was listening to ESPN radio because I was, wanting to hear all the scuttlebutt after the final games and having seen, Florida State with its third string quarterback defeat Louisville. But they were letting, people dial in from all over the country to present their case at who should be in the top 4 and who's going to get squeezed out. And I was amazed at the level of detail and wit and humor and just smackdown trash talking from dudes all over the country, just presenting fabulous cases. And that's really what it was, part of the beauty of why we love the sport in all sports, but particularly for those of us who love college football. I mean, the game itself is amazing, but the reactions and the competition and everything else, because it's an expression of what we care about, because there's so much that goes into it, And I know that there's some of you that follow me that I, adore, and I appreciate that, probably are like, what are you talking about, dude? This isn't what we want to hear from you. This isn't, we're not watching ESPN to hear Patrick Lovell, ruminate about college football, because what Patrick Lovell is bringing is something slightly different. But is it? Because my point being is that everybody that chimes in on this subject has an incredible encyclopedia of knowledge that has played out through the entire season, and they can get animated and passionate and incredibly driven just for something that, even if it looks like, because of and I got to bring this up because this is kind of important, the 13 members of the College Bowl Selection Committee. Who are they? I mean, the first guy that I saw, I know that there's like the Heisman Trophy, there's people that come from within the sports writing divisions and those that are in the mix and everything else. But, I've never seen ESPN lay out, like, for example, the whole resume of everybody who's on that selection committee, honestly. And they had this interview with this guy, Boo, whose last name I can't remember, but they're out of Dallas. My friend Corey actually used to live, it's like a suburb of Dallas, right in between Fort Worth and Dallas. I mean, the whole area is a suburb, basically, right? And why can't I think of the name of it? Because that's where the Dallas Cowboys have their practice facility and the corporate headquarters. In fact, all the corporate headquarters of America, including, I think, AT&T, are located in this location. Hence why the big corporate guys would be there, right? But it's like, who are these 13 guys, and why does it matter? Well, because as everybody on ESPN has been talking about, it really is a popularity contest at the end. I mean, there's a lot that go into it other than the algorithms that are put into what the bowl committee is projected of what goes into the decision making, which makes it all absurd. Those of us who have been college football fans forever know that we should have had a playoff system from the very beginning of at least 12 teams. I would have personally liked to see it be 16, to be honest with you. 12 teams, okay. But what is my point with regards to what it is that I truth bomb riff about and everything else? Well, if you're just, because anything can happen on the internet. Maybe you just discover this for whatever reason and somebody shared it. And maybe you're thinking I'm talking about this topic and you don't know who I am. I'm a muckraking journalist. Muckraker means I'm a searcher of truth and I'll do whatever I have to do to get it. I'm an independent producer. I produced what I believe, and I don't say this with hesitation. I know it. But I also know all of the things that I wasn't able to do with season 1 of The Con that you can find at www.thecon.tv that I intended to do for season 2 because I was so sure we were going to get a deal because there's so much unbelievable information. But The Con is the most important revelation possibly, honestly, in the history of the world. Does that sound fucking nuts? It's because it is. And you'd understand if you saw The Con, which is the blueprint for how power operates, which isn't the blueprint for how the power operates with the College Bowl Championship Series. But yeah, there are some allusions that you can use metaphors and you can make some analogies and that sort of thing. Because again, a lot of these guys that are making these decisions for the College Football Bowl Championship Series are behind the scenes and we don't know who they are. We don't know exactly why they made the decision the way they made the decision. And there's a lot that goes into it, especially mostly money. In that particular case, we're going to still get great bowl games, and it's going to be fantastic for the top 4, and I'll take it as a fan. And hopefully, next year with the expansion to 12 teams, it'll be a lot more fair. And if it's anything like, college basketball or the NFL, there's always going to be a team that comes out of nowhere that operated, basically subpar during the season that comes and gets hot in the playoffs and wins the championship anyway. We got this crazy thing in sports where it's like you got to be perfect every single time to make us go, oh yeah, those are the guys and there's nobody arguing about it. And that's just not the way it works because nothing is ever perfect completely, except if you think about a couple of Super Bowl champions, whether it was the Pittsburgh Steelers a few years or, of course, the New England Patriots or the San Francisco 49ers. Had a couple of seasons in there that were probably complete perfection. Anyway, even though they lost a couple of games, the only guys that went undefeated were, of course, the Miami Dolphins, right? And Bob Greasy and whatever 1970 something that was, 76 probably. Anyway, look. So, I am a journalist. I'm an investigator. I'm a guy that got a lot of information initially from a dude by the name of Matt Taibbi. He used to do fantastic work at Rolling Stone magazine. He inspired me. I'd gone through my own collapse in the 2008 great financial crisis that set me on this incredible journey that was 13 years. Now, interestingly enough, my journey was basically the same arc as was another person who is on face much more successful than I am, much more well-known, much more heated, much more credibility, if you will, by the name of Andrew Ross Sorkin. And Andrew Ross Sorkin recently, this last week, did his once-a-year annual Deal Book Conference, which has a lot of the heavy hitters in media and entertainment and business and tech, and they come together to talk about things and answer questions from this guy is supposed to be kind of the imprimatur of mainstream media and kind of the way that the nation's paper of record looks at it through kind of a lens of smart people and how things operate, but there's a lot of nuance and illusion. But quite frankly, the entirety of Deal Book is a massive obfuscation to bring all the power players together under one roof to do whatever they do behind the scenes, but, mostly send, messages that I would say are beyond Orwellian. And the nature of the interview with Elon Musk got all the attention. So if you happen to see the clip where Elon Musk with this guy you probably didn't recognize, who's the guy I'm talking about, Andrew Ross Sorkin, who came out of the New York Times, who co-wrote a book called Too Big to Fail, which was basically the cover-up of what I had to go on a journey 13 years to get all the details of the information that the nation's paper of record, fake media, which I never would have believed it, and I used to deadpan Trumpenstein, Donald Trump, the liar in chief, all the time when he brought it up, but I was like, yeah, maybe to a degree, but he's been playing media since the 80s. And oh yeah, as it turns out, the New York Times is part of it. And they've proved it over and over and over recently. And I work with guys from the New York Times, and they've let me know about things behind the scenes, but all you have to do is look at the full picture when you have the information that I have, and then take it back to Andrew Ross Sorkin. We were all responding to Elon, and I think it was a setup, but it was a smart and stupid one at the same time, and I'm still on the fence about a bunch of stuff. But Elon says to the advertisers, you can go fuck yourself. What are you gonna do? You're gonna use money to sabotage me? You're gonna hold me hostage, captive, or whatever he said. To basically use the information against me. Go fuck yourself. And now he's like a hero. But ironically, here's Andrew Ross Sorkin, this guy from, what's the, and I've been there and I know a lot of people from there, and my dad used to do a lot of business. It's a suburb of New York. It's a hugely influential Jewish community. I mean, Scarsdale. And all of these guys are smart and incredibly successful. They go to Wall Street, they go to law firms, they go to Ivy League schools, all that kind of stuff. And Andrew Ross Sorkin came out of that environment. And oh yeah, when I grew up, I used to go to Scarsdale because I'm kind of at that environment. I didn't go to an Ivy League school because I didn't go to the elite prep school that my granddad was thinking about sending me to, but I chose a different pathway and I ended up at a public school. And I'm not the smartest guy in the universe, but I got the largest criminal conspiracy and cover-up in history in the world that never ended, that this entirety of this machinations of Orwellian universe and big money are what it's all about. And yeah, we paid a lot of attention to Elon Musk, and it was definitely a very helpful interview for me in a lot of ways that I didn't expect. So kudos to both of them, but it wasn't because of any genius by Andrew Ross Sorkin, as Sorkin being the squid boy that he is. But there was some really interesting things that I thought, Elon revealed to me. And Elon, if you happen to watch this, you're listening to all the wrong people, dude. I think you're the real deal. I think you're got a little bit of baggage and strange things going on in your head. And I think it is inevitable that if you're the richest man in the universe with the stuff that you've got your eyes on, but dude, we both speak the language of 42 in life, the universe, and everything. And oh yeah, I understand Zaphod, Preble Brox, and Ford Perfect and the crew, because yeah, I've been through that journey many, many, many times, both through the book and also in my own personal experience. And yeah, the Googleplex and 42, and and then of course what I've revealed, and I hope you've checked out what the James Webb Telescope had revealed to us, that Douglas Adams would have fallen out of his chair, which is the question mark. So we both know what that means. But really, the most important interview that took place that I've seen so far, and I've seen a few of them, and I haven't seen all of them, and I will see all of them soon, but was none other than with Jamie Dimon. It's only 32 minutes. I highly recommend you check it out. Because Jamie Dimon and what he revealed, and kind of a good guy sort of shtick, he seemed super likable to me, is like that meme where what you see is the tip of the iceberg above the surface, and what he knows would fill up the rest of this picture, and quite frankly, my room and the city I live in and everything else, with the knowledge of what he's involved with. And the questions that Andrew Ross Sorkin asked him were basically lob ball, let's play with the real power so that he can tell us things that are, quite frankly, was a trajectory to people running for president. You want to run for president? These are the issues that are important to me, Jamie Dimon. And maybe I'll run for president. It was what I was hearing. But meanwhile, Andrew Ross Sorkin didn't ask him questions about Elaine Flashman and all things 2008, not to mention the 5 convictions, including the RICO conviction for front running and also insider trading with all of the heavy metals trades, and there's more, but not to mention, of course, all things, and this should, if you're kind of like trying to read between the lines, because I'm only going to do this for like 15, 20 minutes today and not give you the whole history of the world, that your ears should perk up if you started with college football, because all guys that pay attention to college football, have a sort of opinion about Epstein. Yeah, there would have been a lot of questions you could ask Jamie Dimon about Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein Island. Oh yeah, and Chase's involvement with financing it, and Wexler and all the billionaires behind the scene and everything that means, and the guy who was their general counsel who had the information and what Jamie knew and what Jamie didn't know and all of these other things. But don't worry about it, because the New York Times isn't going to cover it. And oh yeah, by the way, to all of you Trump guys out there, all you MAGAs, Trump had been involved, and we've seen pictures forever with Epstein going back forever, and yet you guys are like, oh no, he doesn't have a relationship with Epstein. Meanwhile, Epstein got some of the masseuses, maybe many of the masseuses, I don't know how many exactly, but I'm sure I could figure it out pretty quickly, of the girls from Mar-a-Lago who were the masseuses who became, which you guys all get all flipped out about, and you go to Pizzagate and all this other shit. Meanwhile, Donald Trump got his wife from the Epstein encounter. And oh yeah, Epstein died when Donald Trump was the president. Okay, so those are things that might have been interesting to talk to Jamie Dimon about, because it also would lead you, if you understood the real history, that Jamie Dimon and Sandy Weil, who was Sandy Weil, just look it up or listen to my truth bombs, or come. I give you all this information all the time. You can find them in all of my truth bombs at Patrick Level Truth Bombs the Con. Sandy Weil, the former chairman of Citigroup, who used to be basically together with Jamie Dimon when they created all of the different things that led to the deregulation in the late 90s with Phil Gramm, because of all the stuff that was happening in Clinton, that gave us this world that I've revealed to you. And oh yeah, by the way, as it turns out, they were involved with none other than financing some sort of deep six airline for the CIA that was all over the world. Oh yeah, that comes in handy if you understood what the ICIJ did, which is the International Consortium for International Journalists, investigative journalists, when they did the FinCEN files, which is all the deep dive and all the different analytics of what's going on with money laundering around the world, where they revealed that there was 2 million suspicious activity reports that were turned over to the Department of Justice that never were acted upon, of which many assume, and I do too, that Chase is the money launderer, the epic money launderer. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason, if you understood the CIA and going back to the very beginning and everything else that this country really is, but you can't get there unless you fully understand, and drum roll please, what your boy Patrick Level is telling you here. And let's bring up the number 13 again, because of the 13 mysterious members of the Bowl Championship Coalition or Decision-Making Committee. Yeah, maybe you can think about this. Federal Reserve Act 13.3 was used illegally to provide tens of trillions of dollars to the largest criminal racketeering apparatus in history, which is our financial system. That basically, what I just informed you about Jamie Dimon is at the apex of. And, Donald Trump is a mid-level player at best who played the same game. And the government is demonstrating left and right that, oh yeah, Donald is a criminal beyond recourse, and yet the guy's the front runner of the Republican Party. But that brings me back to my last piece that I wanted to introduce this morning, because again, I could go on for hours, and I always do, right? But I happened to mention this on X the other day. So George Santos gets kicked out of Congress on Friday because the guy's a weasel worm fucking maggot, if there ever was, with this guy hybrid, pseudo gay guy that fancied himself a Jewish guy to get votes in New York or Long Island. And ultimately, he was putting all sorts of campaign finance on his credit card to get Versace or whatever the fucking Ferragamo. And then he was, lying, stealing, and cheating every which way to Sunday. And it got so ridiculous that obviously the House and the whole House is involved with doing different versions of what Santos did. But he was so out in front of it, and it was just so, bulletproof. And it was just, they couldn't even tolerate him. That's how bad Santos was. And so they X'd him. But I read from Deadline Hollywood that HBO is going to do a movie about this son of a bitch. Yeah, HBO, Time Warner, one of the big boys. They're going to do a movie. That's front and center. They're going to do a movie about George Santos because that's important. Meanwhile, I was in front of HBO with the story that reveals the largest criminal conspiracy and cover-up in history that led to $33 trillion being illegally run through our fucking Federal Reserve, through Federal Reserve Act 13.3, and I could lay out all of the elements of why it's illegal, but I'll save that, and I've already done it a million times, but it just all comes back, it all comes down to the value of the collateral and who's insolvent. That's the easiest thing to see in the world. But don't worry about it because you didn't know what was going behind the scenes, just like the decision-making committee that made up the Bull Champion series. But this, where $33 trillion was looted and given to the same motherfuckers, which are that tiny in context of the general population. I bet you there's probably hundreds of thousands that are in the mix at the top 0.001%. And the rest of us got fucked completely, like Florida State. So if you're pissed off about Florida State, trust me, it's a lot worse if you got your house fucking set up and taken, or your pension, you wound up, in the streets, and you had your, wife, get rid of you in a divorce, and you lost your family, or somebody committed suicide, and all of those things that came with this collateral train wreck that buried the United States. Sorry, it's going to sound gross, but a lot of people, you react to the visceral scenario of children being buried in the rubble of Gaza. Yeah, we did that to tens of millions of Americans, people that none of you really seem to give a shit about. Maybe it's easier to just look at a picture of a child suffering and dying, and it's understandable. It really is. I'm not being cynical or jaded, or but it's just part and parcel of the psychological defect of how this works in social media and lower bandwidths and everything else. And that's the deal. But here's the thing about HBO. They're going to do a story about George Santos. This on top of they put out what I saw, which was a propaganda multi-part series of Donald Trump. So HBO, who used to be under the guidance of a woman by the name of Sheila Nevins, and another woman who was her right-hand woman, Nancy Abraham. These guys were the gold standard for a long time. They did fantastic work. They worked with guys, and I was close to working with them, but there's some weird stuff going on with Alex Gibney and others. But it's all about the money and the Benjamins, and they couldn't let the world understand that the financial system that pays for their productions, that finances the entire network and the whole panoply of how the business structure works, and we could go through that if you wanted, a lesson in that. I could certainly walk you through the entire structure, but finance comes from a general apparatus of the financial system, whether it's the too big to fail banks, whether it's private equity, whether it's investment on the market, and all of those guys run it, and all of their financing comes from none other than the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, in addition to the $33 trillion that was unleashed illegally for all of these criminals that pulled off the largest racketeering conspiracy in history. And if you don't know what that means, look at the mob. It's racketeering. Racketeering, influence, corrupt organization. It's an organization of fraud, of criminality, of theft, of drug running, of deception, of whatever the case is, depending on who the outcome is. And I got the answers to all of it. And then we did 16 plus trillion for buying back toxic assets that the system created illegally. That was the famous line that Timothy Geithner said: the American people are going to be foam on the runway for the crashing financial system, which means tyranny. They're kings, and everybody else, they're above the law. And all of you other people out there that are fighting, like me, about, oh my God, what an unfair depiction of what happened in the college football playoff series. HBO ignores our story that lays the whole fucking thing out. And by the way, we got it to Oprah Winfrey as well, via her right-hand woman, Ava DuVernay, and they passed, even though our protagonist is an African-American 91-year-old female, a woman who was the epitome and epitomized the Great Migration and the American dream of the African-Americans that escaped Jim Crow to get their share of the American dream, only to have it stolen from them. And when it happened to Addie Polk, she had to turn her husband's gun on her instead of face homelessness, and she shot herself 5 times in the chest. But through her tragedy, we found the only racketeering RICO conviction in the entire country that was in the entire thing. And we put together all of it with the FBI, the DOJ, the SEC, everybody. It's bulletproof. AGs around the country, the top law enforcement guys, the top whistleblowers, everybody. And these geniuses at HBO, by the way, the consequences, not only did it still, and I'm up to, what I say, 50 trillion roughly right there, right? $50 fucking trillion, $50 fucking trillion for that, just that part of it. Then there was another 22 trillion in 2019 for a repo run, and that's another part of the story. And then COVID hit, and there's another part of the story there as well. Not to mention the bank runs and the whole story there. It goes on and on and on. But what I have and what I'm trying to invigorate and electrify everybody who's just as pissed off and knowledgeable about the playoff college football championship series, if you had that information that I have in my head and you understood how we all got fucked by the Borg of corruption, then we would plow corruption into the ground like that. I guarantee it, but I got to somehow connect with everybody. And I'll just finish up with this with HBO and the insane hypocrisy of the gatekeepers, of the decision makers. I'd like to, quite frankly, get 50 million people to boycott HBO, but you know what? I don't know if I'm boycotting HBO, because I love to watch Game of Thrones all the fucking time and other great movies that they have on there that I love, that quite frankly tell the truth through Batman or this or that and everything else, so it's like, it's difficult to pull yourself from the fucking hypodermic needle of entertainment when these cocksuckers are so fucking stupid. I gotta find a way to be able to get people to go like, HBO, are you fucking nuts? Sorry to use these epitaphs, but you know what? I'm tired of, you can't be polite. I see Professor Robert Reich, be polite about Trump and all of this. We have a full wholesale corruption hijacking of our system by criminals, and we're not going to electrify tens of millions of people until they can understand it in their own terminology and their own way of thinking about things and what they see and what's important to them. But this is what I know about the United States, okay? That's what I know about the United States above all else. Going back to my college football sort of mechanics and understanding of the game itself, of which I've been involved with my entire life. I've probably seen over thousands and thousands of games. I'm an encyclopedia when it comes to college football, if you want to know the truth. I know the rules. I know who plays. I know all the recruiting. I know the portals. I know, fuck, whatever, man. We could talk over a beer, over hundreds of beers, over what. Yeah, that's my language. That's what I know. And that's how I was able to understand and unlock this corruption that has destroyed the United States. We are a nation of competitors. We love our sports because we love to be a part of something that we're invested in, that when we see our team or our players or somebody that we knew that was through our insight and our intelligence, it's so incredibly fulfilling. It's so incredibly wow, right? And then we celebrate as a country our national champions. And it means something. Oh yeah, and if we found out that the whole thing was rigged, that all the referees were in on something for Vegas where somebody was going to get played and we knew somebody through the game. Just think about, one of my favorite films of all time. It was way better than the Adam Sandler version, interestingly enough. I'm going to go see Adam Sandler tonight. But of course, Florida State, that's how funny is that? Florida State, Smokey and the Bandit. Why can't I think of his wonderful name? Burt Reynolds, right? He played the greatest version of The Longest Yard, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And what did he do in that movie when given the chance of, this guy was a criminal, all sorts of problems with alcoholism and throwing games, and he threw the game, but he had to think straight about it because everybody in the pen were like, you motherfucker, you sold out the game. So it was like honor among thieves. It's like, you don't fuck with the game, man. The game is what matters. The game is the integrity of the system and who we are, because that's what we are as warriors. And that was laid out brilliantly. And I wish I knew who wrote that film because I can't think of it at the moment. The Longest Yard, Burt Reynolds. It's the greatest depiction of all time. No disrespect to Adam Sandler, and I can't wait to go see him tonight. But yeah, integrity matters to all of us in the United States. And I got to find the engineers and the software guys and the artists and everybody who lives this way. And look. I wrote on X last night. I'm like, look, I can't stand the hate or the haters, but I can't stand the hate. I'm about those who create. And if you, me, and everyone you see who isn't a Nazi, who believes in dignity and integrity and decency and liberty and justice for all, and equality and the nature of liberty and justice for all, obviously, and then sustainability, which is a huge piece of the puzzle. And those of us who celebrate beauty and we come together in unity, we will defeat the misery of tyranny, and that's our destiny, and that's what I'm doing, which is called the Clean New Deal, with my colleagues, and we've got this. But we've got to get millions of you. We've got to start with hundreds, maybe thousands. Please reach out to me. Please join us. We've got a plan to create the Clean New Deal, because there's nobody in politics, there's nobody in media, there's nobody who has the answers that I do. That's all there is to it. And I'm fighting like Burt Reynolds as the mean machine, against the prison guards. And we got to fucking win. That's really the deal, man. And was there anything else I missed? Oh yeah, going back to HBO. No, really, I do want to say that one of the victories that could potentially happen concurrent with this movement that we're trying to create, and by the way, everybody's got to come involved, and I'll finish with this. This is what I'll finish with. So 13, right? 13 committee members I opened up with, and I got the Federal Reserve Act 13.3, which is really the ultimate 13 of all. But again, 13 is a huge number in my experience, and I've laid out in my previous Truth Bombs why 13 is, but it's primarily that the original 13 colonies came together to have the insight, the character, and the commitment, and the unity to be able to defeat what was at that time, it would be like comparing, I don't know, like a Division II team against one of the top players of these blue bloods in the college football series. Imagine being able to beat Nick Saban, for example, right? Nick Saban. So it was an impossibility, but the Patriots did. And they had a plan, and it was called separation of powers through the Bill of Rights. Started off with the Articles of Confederation, led to the Constitution, and yeah, all of those things is to create a semblance so that you and I and everybody you see has a chance, and it creates this dynamism. And did it happen overnight? No. When we're 250 years, we're still fighting for the same in order to form a more perfect union. But I can guarantee you it's not from anybody that's in the presidential race. And what we've got to do is we've got to generate this movement, and hopefully some candidates downstream that would be an impossibility. But dude, failure is not an option. Yeah, it is impossible. Failure is not an option. We have to be able to get the information to the American people that breaks through all of the disinformation that this entirety of media, particularly the New York Times with Andrew Ross Sorkin, acts in an obfuscation to send the power of what Jamie Dimon wants to tell us to do, when meanwhile Jamie Dimon is sitting on crimes that are ridiculous. And the guy should not be the CEO of the biggest bank in the United States, one of the biggest in the world, but instead stock prices go up every single time the guy has a settlement. That's how insidious the big money is in this country. And I'm certainly not against people becoming successful, but you've got to earn it. You've got to earn it by laying it out on the field and proving time and time again what you're committed to, and then you win it in the big game. I mean, my God, that is the America that I love. That is the America that I'm a part of. That is the America that I know tens of millions of you are a part of. And HBO, one of our biggest platforms of media, they turn their back on the truth that could have saved the United States. But HBO is not interested in saving the United States. HBO is interested in entertaining us to the point that we can go ooh and ah and really learn shit tons, like I have from Game of Thrones, to be honest with you. I've seen it 7 times. Who sat through Game of Thrones all 8 seasons? 7 times. I have. Because it got like a drug to me after a while. There was nothing that even came close to the brilliance of that story. And on that scheme and on that sort of arc, I was always with the Hound and Arya. I was with all the Starks, but primarily the Hound and Arya. Although I love Brianna and I love Jon and I love Daenerys and I love everybody on the good side. You know who the good side was. So, or at least better. They were all a little bit flawed. So, look guys, 13. Billionaires spend billions of dollars to loot trillions. They're stealing from all of us. And you're the sucker play. And the Supreme Court, unless you want to pick up a musket and go into the streets or set up a guillotine in lower Manhattan at Liberty Street and start, doing the reign of terror with the CEOs of Wall Street, that's not my vision. I'd rather the justice rise and we basically get the convictions against these guys. We out the entirety corruption of SCOTUS, Congress, the presidency, all of the parties, and then we just have a complete purge. I call it a tidal wave purge to purge corruption, a tidal wave populist crusade to purge corruption and the fascism it fuels. Because I'm an American. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about competing and winning. And man, have I sacrificed a lot to get here, and there's no joke about any of it. It's just been excruciating, and it's been a heavy, heavy, heavy lift, but fuck it, man. Somebody had to do it, and that was me. But I need millions of you to join me now because I've already got all the information. I've already know exactly what everybody's going to say and how they're going to say it in power to hide it from you. I'm the truth sayer, bro. Yeah, and by the way, I'd like to take down HBO. I'd like to be the alternative to documentaries that HBO has given us that they're going to give us. Why? Because somebody wants to see how George Santos lied his way to Congress, and we're going to celebrate that. How about, oh my God, I could do the story of George Santos like HBO obviously can't, and I could take it to Trump and everything else, and I could do it with so much more if you were involved, but that's part of the story. And so I'm asking everybody out there, this is much less than your monthly subscription to ESPN on whatever platform, because I have it myself and HBO, but I'm looking for $13 infusions from everybody out there that wants to turn this thing up, the ship upside down and right side up, because the Supreme Court said that money is legal. I mean, money is the citizen. Money is not fiction. What would they say in Citizens United? Money is your voice. That's all there is to it. And by the way, every presidential contender's got to come up with $1 billion if they're going to really run on the general platform. And where do you think that money's coming from? It's coming from these guys that are getting trillions of dollars in return, because the cheapest return on investment is to buy a dirty fucking politician who talks out of both sides of his fucking mouth. Yeah, that's what we are. And you all know it. We all know the system is rigged. We all know the system is corrupt. So let's fucking break it. Let's destroy it. Let's get back to fucking integrity. And the systems have got to work, man. Doesn't mean you can't go out and play and gamble and go get a hooker if you want to. As far as I'm concerned, have at it. But the system has to be the system. Just like college football, just like pro football, just like, fuck. This is so simple. It's paint by the numbers. But somehow I have got to get to tens of millions of you. So if you, like, literally, let's do the numbers on this real quick. If there were at least 10 million filed, well, I know there were 16 million filed foreclosures. I've seen numbers from like 4 million to 10 million. Most people are putting the foreclosures between 2007, 6 to 2014, 16, somewhere in the 16 million range. It's a big number. But there were more than people that got foreclosed on. And a lot of those people were chumps. Yeah, they were. They walked right into it. They just, I hate to think of it this way, but this is the way it was. It was Wall Street laying out cheese in a trap and they got fucking snapped. Yeah, that was a lot of people. But that wasn't all people. In fact, that was a small percentage of the people. Everybody got set up in a lie. And everything was a lie. It was the largest conspiracy of lies in the history of the world, bar none. Primarily because of technology. We could get into blood libel and anti-Semitism and everything else. And we could do the statistics on that. But, this was, in terms of a system, the largest criminal conspiracy and cover-up in the history of the world. And they have complete fucking control. And they're going to have complete control no matter who wins the election. The only difference between Donald Trump, as far as I see it, and Biden is that Donald Trump's just going to have a free-for-all. It's going to be fascism. Mussolini fascism, because I think Donald Trump is just a fucking pig. He's not Hitler. Hitler was he was Satan personified. Donald Trump is just griftopia, and he's an idiot, and he eats Kentucky Fried Chicken in his Mad magazine. I mean, he's satire. They live. He's funny, but he's not funny. And he's also an ass clown, and he's so stupid. Just the idea of having somebody that stupid as our president pisses me off, but it's the fascism is what we've got to really, 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 that's it. No more. That's it. Everybody's got to come together because you can't be in silos anymore because corruption births and fuels fascism. The answers that I have unveil it all. It's the emperor's new clothes on really bad acid, and failure is not an option. Rise, roar, revolt, onwards and upwards. And if you can invest $13 because the spirit of the original patriots that came together to give us all of these incredible liberties and freedoms that we're now fumbling completely because we're in silos and we're stupid and we're puppeteers and we're weak and we're cowards, but we're not. We're not any of those things. It's just not, nobody's been able to put it all together so that millions of Americans who are tough as shit and smart and really incredibly courageous didn't have a place to go. Now you do. But the thing is, and if this is the first time you're seeing it, so am I like some charlatan in a church that's asking in my what do they call them, the super churches, the mega churches, whatever, please, I speak for God and all of this other kinds of crap. Yeah, no, I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that cost us $4.5 million to get the $33 trillion truth, which is incredible. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but we have an apparatus of the DOJ, the FBI, the SEC, AGs around the country, and so many more, all these different agencies that operate north of $90 billion a year, and they've got 10,000 plus employees, okay? I didn't have all that. I just had the will. And it's my DNA. Fuck the bad guys. Call it David versus Goliath. Whatever you want to call it. I'm in it to win it, man. And if 357,000 of you ponied up $13, you'd match what we've already done. And that was like, 4 years ago when we were completed with that deal? Cost me 13 years of my life, by the way, another 13 years. And I'm right in the midst of it. And, tens of thousands of hours, ultimately a divorce, unfortunately. I can't blame my ex-wife. It's a tough one, guys. It's a tough one. Let me tell you. When you're fighting for your country and liberty and freedom for all and justice and everything depends on it, man, you got to make some hard choices. And boy, have I. And because of it, I'm more committed than ever. It's obsessed. Yeah. but it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's racketeering. And when you have the truth, you're bulletproof. We got to save America, and we can do it with $13 increments. And oh, by the way, if you bring in 13 other people and you join us, we're going to give you a t-shirt eventually when we can put it all together. But of these hashtags of everything that I've just said that you can wear around, and we got to get people all over the country. And we got to create this groundswell, what we're calling the Populist Crusade is going to be a national barnstorming tour, not unlike Lollapalooza, kind of like Live Aid back in the day for those of you who came from Gen X. But we're going to bring everybody together. We're going to show the truth. I'm going to produce the truth. I'm going to reveal it, kind of like a Tony Robbins / if you've ever seen a Tony Robbins deal, but with the story that all of mainstream and all this giant corporate media has hid from you, which is the big cloud. And we're going to pierce the veil. We're going to show the light. We're going to show the truth to all. We're going to convert, sorry to sound like an evangelical, which is kind of ironic because of those of you who think it's the end of the world and then the second coming and, we got to defeat the wicked. Yeah, we do. And we're going to do it with the Clean New Deal. And we're going to usher in the beauty and the dynamism and the clarity of the greatest righteous grind in the history of the world when tens of millions of us come together and throw down with the genesis of the truth, man. Boy, biblical stuff's kind of fun to use metaphors with. And I'm not a very religious guy, definitely more spiritual. But I'm all about guts, blood and guts, and in the trenches guy, and you fight for what you get and all of those things. And yeah, at the end, I want to capitalize and destroying those who have destroyed us. Yeah, I want the big payback. So thank you for listening. Onwards and upwards. I'll have a link to investing with our movement today, but please reach out to me if you can. And sorry, Florida State, but the rest of you, you're always welcome. We'd love to have you involved. Anybody from Florida, from New York to California to Maine to Alaska to everybody in between. And then if you're around the world, great. Don't hesitate. Kick in $13 today. Go watch The Con, www.thecon.tv. Shoot me a private message. Call me, whatever. Join our movement. Man, we got to get together. There's no time to waste. Corruption burns and fuels fascism. What else do you need to know? Thanks. Bye.